everyone and welcome to my studio. I'm Diane and today we're going to have a little play with a very easy daffodil warm-up recipe. So I have a piece of paper here which is about 8 by 10 inches, just watercolour paper, and I have my 1-inch flat wash brush. I've taped down the paper to hold it in place and prevent it from buckling too much when I do the first step of this painting. And I'm just propping my board up on a convenient box of acrylic paints to keep it at an angle which will help me to do this gradated wash. So now I'm just dampening the paper with some water and just making sure that I get all the water in place right at the very beginning. And then I'm going to drop in some turquoise paint and I'm going to make that into the sky of this little painting. I really didn't know what I wanted to paint when I came into the studio today, so I thought I would just have a go at doing this particular exercise. I saw someone else doing it on Pinterest or somewhere, and I thought it looked like a good way to start the day. So I'm just dropping in some cobalt blue at the top of the paper and spreading it out and letting it get paler as it goes down the paper. And of course the water will carry the pigment down into the lower part of the paper, so thereby giving a realistic sky-like effect. This is a very useful process if you're going to be doing a proper painting where you want a nice summery sky, and you lay this in first, allow it to dry naturally, and then you'll have a lovely sky to paint on top of. So if you want to practice some of the watercolour techniques, which we all need to learn, you could do worse than practice doing a few washes like this. It's not actually quite as easy as it looks to get it nice and even, but the main thing is to remember to wet your paper first, but not too much, just a little, and then the paint will flow nicely down. Also use a paint which is suitable, so a transparent blue like cobalt blue or ultramarine is good. If you use a turquoise blue, which tends to be a little bit more opaque, you'll find that that might not smoothly flow down the paper in quite the same way. Now this little painting starts off with a row of purple pansies at the bottom and then moves on up into the leaves of the daffodils and then finishes with daffodils all dancing in a row across the paper. It's a bit late for Easter now, being as it's Easter Sunday today, but this would make a nice Easter card for next year or something, just to get your creative juices flowing on that morning when you decide you want to paint something to relax, but you can't think what to paint. So you want something where there's no pressure, something perhaps that reminds you of your days in years gone by when nothing seemed to matter as much because there was always another tomorrow. So I've just laid in some Winsor purple or dioxazine purple here, or any colour like that, just in a kind of random way, darker on the left than it is on the right to give it a bit more optical interest. And that's just to represent the pansy flowers. I've got other videos which go into more detail and proper full tutorials on how to paint pansies. If you want to have a look at those, that would be great. But this is just an impression. This is just literally an impression. And now I'm giving the impression of a few leaves, going in with sap green or olive green or a mixture of both, or maybe it could be cobalt blue mixed with quinacridone gold. It's up to you to decide. Just to indicate a few of the leaves there, and then just softening it up a little bit along the bottom edge. Because I've taped the paper, you'll get a nice clean edge anyway, even if you do go over the paper. When that peels back, you'll get a nice clean edge, and it'll look as if it's even got a frame around it. It's amazing what a clean edge around a painting will do. Now you'll notice that where I did my sky wash, there's a little bit of a puddle there in the middle of the paper, and that's because I just taped the paper down. If I'd taken the time to stretch the paper, that wouldn't have happened because stretched paper doesn't cockle like that. But I was working on the principle that this was just a warm-up and it doesn't matter, and I can get rid of that because I'm going to be painting over it anyway. Now I've come back in with my round brush and my sap green, and I'm just indicating in the leaves of the daffodils there with some vertical strokes. And now with a bit of black, I'm just dotting in some centres for the pansies along the bottom there, just keeping it all very light and simple and no pressure, and just let's just play. After all, what's life if it's not about a playtime? Speeding things up a bit here with the hairdryer just to get things moving a bit more quickly, because I don't fancy a cup of tea at the moment, so I might as well just dry my paper. Of course, if I was singing to my own hymn tune, I would go away, leave it to dry and come back in an hour or so, but I think I was in a little bit more of a time constraint here, so we're just bunging the old hairdryer over that, dry it off. And as you see that drying, notice how the paint, especially the green, tends to go paler, the blue as well. Whereas the violet, the purple colour at the bottom, perhaps not quite so much. But everything will definitely dye back as you dry it, or as it dries naturally. So once that's done satisfactorily, I'm going to paint in the daffodils. And as we know, daffodils are yellow. Often these days, with the way they breed them, they have a darker yellow centre. So I'm going to be painting those daffodils with quinacridone gold for the centre. You could use probably burnt sienna if you don't have quinacridone gold, although I do recommend you get quinacridone gold along with potter's pink, because if you're following my tutorials, you will find I use those two colours quite a lot, and they're not generally speaking found in the sets that you buy. So have a look in the description below where you'll see links to those colours, where you can just click on those links. It takes you straight into Amazon and you'll be able to pop them in your shopping basket with no problem. They're not very expensive, around about $10 for a tube of both those colours. And I think the makes I chose were Winsor & Newton, but of course there are others. Obviously, a lot of people like Daniel Smith, but I tend to go for Winsor & Newton or Schminke or Old Holland myself. Okay, so now I have reinforced the leaves of the daffodils with some slightly darker sap green there, and while I was yakking. And now I'm painting the trumpets of the daffodils, and I'm going to do just a kind of random arrangement of daffodils over the whole width of the paper. I'm just putting in the trumpets. It's a fact that generally speaking, daffodils face downwards or straight ahead. They don't tend to face upwards, so I'm trying to remember to put the trumpets in a random way, but mostly facing downwards. And I want to get across this row and do all of these at once, so that I can then come back in with the brighter yellow and allow that yellow to mingle with the orange of the trumpets. So I want to do that while they're still wet. So I picked up my yellow, which I'm probably using cadmium yellow here, cadmium yellow medium probably, and I'm just dashing in the petals of the daffodils in a fairly loose and haphazard way, just to give the impression of the flowers. We're not aiming for a botanical study here, just a little impression of the daffodil. Little sunny faces all in a row. It always makes me think of that film, Dr. Zhivago. I remember have you seen that film in Dr. Zhivago where the spring comes and Yuri goes out into the garden and sees this amazing sea of daffodils? That image stuck in my mind when I first saw that film in about 1960 something, and it always stayed with me over the years. A very impactful film that was, especially that particular scene with that beautiful music, Lara's theme. Anyway, now I am coming in with the green, sap green again, and just indicating the stems of the daffodils, which have that characteristic turnover at the top there, so you know it's a daffodil if it has a bend in the stalk at the top. And just bunging those in a fairly kind of random sort of way. And now I've picked up a different green. This is Old Holland Windsor green, which is a different shade. It's a little bit more opaque, a little bit more bluish, And I think it's true to say that the leaves of the daffodils do have a bluish kind of tint to them. So there's no harm in that, and that gives a nice contrast with the daffodil flowers and sort of links the purples at the bottom and the blue of the sky. And this is really just an exercise in brush control. If you like to think of it like that, you're teaching yourself how to paint by doing something that really, it's not a masterpiece. No one would ever claim it was a masterpiece. It's just a bit of fun and an exercise in controlling the water. A lot of beginner watercolorists say that they find it difficult to control the water when they're painting watercolor. So, you know, just practice more really. Don't give up and go off and start using watercolor pencils. It's not necessary to do that. Just keep practicing. You will get it. You really will. So I've been using just an ordinary round synthetic brush here. It's a nylon brush from Japan, and that does practically everything that you could need. Just a few round brushes, perhaps a flat, maybe a rigger, and a toothbrush is the other thing that you need to finish off this painting, I think. If you feel like doing some spatter later on, get that toothbrush ready and mix up some loose wash paint so that you can pick it up on the toothbrush. We'll probably be doing that in a minute. Now I'm just strengthening the colour of the leaves and the stalks using a fairly strong mix of green. And you can do as much of this as you like, or as little, all while practicing your ability to control the shape and size of the stroke that you're making with that brush. You can make little dots and dashes, you can make long straight leaves, you can do all sorts of things with a round brush. And I'm just adding a little bit more green to the poppies. Why do I keep calling them poppies? They're pansies. To add to the leaves down there, down below. And now I am going to be having a think about what I need to do next. Am I going to do anything else? I could easily stop, let it dry and call that done. But I decided that maybe a few more daffodils in the centre of the painting would make it a little bit more interesting. So I've come back in with my quinacridone gold, and I'm trying to be as random as possible, just dotting a few more in there. Don't do them in a dead straight row because that won't look at all natural. And then I'll come back in with my cadmium yellow medium and put in the petals. A lot of people say they can't paint daffodils, but that's because they're trying to paint them accurately and botanically correctly. But if you just want to give a general impression, you need to remember the shape of the stalk is important, the way it bends behind the flower, so they don't look like daisies. You'd be surprised what a difference that makes. It's easier if you make the trumpet a different colour than the petals. And the leaves come from the base of the flower, and they're long and narrow and bluish green. All of those things are the key to making your daffodils look like daffodils. I hope you give this painting a try. It's really low stress, has absolutely no, makes no demands on you at all whatsoever in the slightest. You can just go ahead and play. I'm sure yours will turn out differently from mine and possibly significantly better. It's not something that you need to stress over. And now, just because I like to use the toothbrush to pull everything together, I'm putting a bit of spatter on there to kind of link the ground to the sky so there isn't that kind of barrier between the two. A technique I use quite often in my other paintings. It's a good way to practice. And then I'm going to pick up another brush and just drop a little bit more spatter using my, what do you call it? It's, hang on a second, it's not a rigger, it's a, oh darn, I can't remember what that brush is called. Anyway, it's in the description below, you'll be able to find it there. Now I'm just softening the dots that I put up there with the toothbrush. script liner. It's called a script liner, that's what it's called, or has two names. It's called a script liner or a sword liner. That's it. Yes, I was trying to think dagger. No, it's not dagger. No, sword. Sword liner. Useful little brush. Link for that in the description below. A few golden droplets there. And I think we're coming very close to the end of the painting, so thank you for being with me today while I did this warm-up. I need to dash off now and do the lunch because I'm way behind and I don't know what we're going to eat. Sun's come out again, which is nice. Spring really has arrived, although yesterday it was absolutely freezing and we had to light the fire again. You feel like you've taken 2 steps forward and 3 steps backwards when that happens. So there's the final painting, and I hope you enjoyed following along with me while I painted that. Please do give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to visit my website at dianeantone.com, where we have free sketches for you to download and prints for sale and lots of other good stuff over there. Also, we have our eBay shop where you can buy prints, and I'm on Etsy as well with different work that you don't see on here. So look forward to seeing you here again later, tomorrow, or as soon as you can come back. And have a lovely evening, enjoy the rest of Easter Sunday, and I'll see you again soon. And I'll say bye-bye for now. Bye-bye everyone, bye-bye.